All right, let's talk about cyber attacks. But we're not going to start where you think. We're going right back to the beginning, to the very first chapter of the story. A chapter that starts way, way before any alarms go off. Let's dive in.
So when you picture a cyber attack, what comes to mind? Probably, some hacker in a hoodie, frantic typing, red alerts flashing everywhere, right? That super chaotic moment. But here's the thing. That's not the beginning. That's the end of the movie. The real start of the attack? It's silent.
Exactly. See, the biggest, baddest attacks, they don't kick off with some fancy piece of code. Nope, they start with a plan. A blueprint, really. Something that's been carefully, meticulously put together using all sorts of information that's been gathered on the down low. This blueprint, well, it's the foundation for everything that's about to happen.
Okay, so let's get into that first move. This is what we're calling the silent planning phase. And honestly, during this stage, the attacker is way more of a spy than a hacker. They're just watching, hanging out in the shadows, observing. It's all about gathering intel. I mean, think about it, right? It's just like any other kind of mission. You're not going to launch some huge operation without knowing the lay of the land, right? You need to know the target's weaknesses, what their schedule is. And a cyber operation, it's exactly the same. It all starts with really careful, really deliberate research.
And this whole phase, this intelligence gathering, it has a name. In cybersecurity circles, we call it reconnaissance. So what on earth is that, really?
Okay, and here's the official definition straight from the MITRE ATT&CK framework. What I love about this is how simple and direct it is. The adversary is just trying to gather information they can use to plan future operations. That's it. The goal is crystal clear. Collect intel that's going to be useful down the road. It's all about setting the table for the next move.
So what kind of info are we even talking about here? Well, you'd be surprised how much of it is just out there, in public. Get this. Think about a company's job postings. You might see a listing for a network engineer that says, hey, you need experience with this specific brand of firewall and this specific VPN software. Now, to you or me, that's just a job requirement. But to an attacker? Wow, that's a gold mine. It's a direct pointer to a specific technology they can go research for vulnerabilities. And that's the level of detail we're talking about. Everything from the company's org chart and their tech stack to, you guessed it, profiles of the people who actually work there. And there are basically two ways they go about getting this stuff. First, there's passive gathering. This is like being a detective watching a building from a car across the street. You're just observing, right? You're digging through public records, scrolling through social media, reading news articles, no direct contact. Then you have active gathering. This is when you get out of the car, walk up to the building, and start, rattling doorknobs, checking if any windows are unlocked. You're actually touching the target's systems, even if it's just a light touch, to see what happens. Okay, so they're gathering all this data, passive, active, you name it. The big question is, why? I mean, what's the point? This isn't just for fun, right? It's not trivia night. Every single piece of information they find has a potential spot in their attack playbook. And this quote from MITRE just hits the nail on the head. The information is leverage. That's the key word right there. It's not the attack, it's the crowbar you use to pry the door open. It's the tool that makes the real attack not just possible, but way more effective. Literally, every decision they make from here on out is based on this intel. So let's connect the dots here. How does this blueprint actually lead to a breach? Well, the intel they gathered during recon, it directly fuels the next step, getting that initial foothold or initial access. So let's say they found an employee's email and their job title on a professional networking site. Boom. That person is now target number one for a super convincing custom-made phishing email. Or maybe they found an unpatched server during their scans. Well, that's their front door, right there. And this planning goes even deeper. It helps them figure out what to do after they're inside the network, which targets to go for first. Now, it's really important to get this. Reconnaissance isn't just some abstract concept we're talking about. It's a real, formally recognized piece of a much, much bigger puzzle that security pros use every single day to track and, more importantly, defend against this stuff. And that puzzle, that big picture, is called the MITRE ATT&CK framework. The best way to think about it is like a giant, detailed map of every known way an attacker can come after a system. It lays out all their moves, their tactics, and their techniques in a really organized way. And if you look at that map, reconnaissance has its own specific address. It's TACT ID TA0043. The framework calls it a tactical goal. which is just a fancy way of saying it's one of the big, high-level things an adversary is trying to accomplish.
So under that one single goal, that one tactic of reconnaissance, get this, there are 11 different techniques. 11! These are all distinct, cataloged methods attackers use just for gathering intel. We're talking everything from scanning big blocks of IP addresses to digging through social media. It just goes to show you how deep this one single phase really is.
All right, so we've defined it, we've put it on the map, we've looked at the techniques. But so what? What's the real takeaway? Why should you care about this quiet, sneaky first step? Here's why it matters. Because cyber attacks are not magic. They're not some random act that comes out of nowhere. They are processes, methodical, planned-out processes. And every process has a beginning. For a cyber attack, that beginning is almost always research. So let's just go back to that core definition one last time, because it's so important. An adversary is trying to gather information to plan future operations. If you truly get that, if you really internalize it, it totally changes how you approach defense. Suddenly, it's not just about building higher walls. It's about thinking, what can people see from the outside of my walls? It's about managing your own visibility. And that really leaves us with a huge question, doesn't it? If the very first move an attacker makes is just to watch you, then your first move in defense has to be about controlling what they can see. So, if attackers always start by watching, how do you become invisible?
Thank you for watching. Our next video will be on active scanning. This is one of the 11 techniques an adversary may use in their reconnaissance efforts against their victims. We appreciate your feedback, so please feel free to reach out to us in the comment section below, on our website at gtsja.com, or email us at info@gtsja.com. I am Alice from Guardian Technological Solutions, where we create, provide, and protect. See you soon.